Welcome to the second video of the series Shaking Objective Personality, a series where I'm trying to explain all the coins of the OP system in a somewhat survivalistic way. And I'm getting really tired of repeating this sentence, and it's just barely the second video. But yeah, if you missed the video about observers, I really recommend you to watch it, because otherwise you may be missing some explanations that I might tie back to. And yeah, so you can find the link in the description, and if you've already watched it, then keep listening. Today's video is about deciders, and unlike the last video, I won't be starting from F and T, so I won't be starting from thinking and feeling. I will instead be starting from DI and DE. The reason I'm doing that is because the T and the F are actually more tricky. I won't say why right now, but for the moment, just trust me and I'll explain later. Now, before talking about the I and the E though, I want to talk about something else, because when it comes to observers, what I liked about what OP did is the renaming from the MBTI way of saying perceivers to observers, because that's what actually the observing functions are doing. Like the S, the N, the OI, the OE, they are performing some kind of observation. And if you call them perceivers, it kind of messes, ironically, with your perception of how you're supposed to think about those functions. And so I really liked that kind of switch. However, when it comes to deciders, I find that it's actually the reverse. I much rather call them judgers, because even if you can still play around the meanings and kind of stretch them and say that they are decisions, I think the word judgment conveys better what the functions are actually doing. Now, an even better word would be assessors, because you're making assessments. But even for me, even for how much I love to find the perfect word for stuff, it's just the word assessor is, it's so ugly. It just sounds ugly even for me. So maybe it's because it has also political connotations sometimes. But yeah, I just don't like the word assessors. But that's what those functions are really doing. The deciders are really just making assessments, because once you made an assessment, then you can also make a decision. But yeah, it's not a big deal. You can still stretch the word deciders to still make it fit. For the purpose of this video, I will probably use the word assessments to better convey what the functions are doing. Now, DI and DE are basically kind of the same as OI and OE. So the DI wants a reliable way to make an assessment, and the DE wants a flexible way to make an assessment. Now, because assessments are by nature made by living beings like you, an object cannot make an assessment. So the fact that DI is the self and DE is the tribe is just a side effect of the fact that by making a reliable assessment, you're making literally an assessment that must be reliable to you. And to make a flexible assessment, you must know the most amount of assessments possible. And so to know the most amount of assessment possible, because living beings make assessments, you are just looking at other living beings. Okay, I really need to make a quick correction to what I just said, because if that was the case, then observer coins would also be about self and tribe, because observations are also made by living beings. Like an inanimate object cannot make an observation. So what I really meant was that assessments are what really moves you in life. So they affect your life in a certain way. And because that's what really affects your life, it's really what affects your survival in a sense, that creates the association between assessments and so decider coins and living beings, which doesn't happen with observer coins, because observations in themselves are neutral. Like the knowledge, if you know something, the knowledge does nothing if you don't apply an assessment to it. And this is also why everyone is a decider. Because at the end of the day, you're really just trying to survive and to survive with or without the tribe. So again, the self and tribe is a side effect of the deciders being associated with stuff that affects your life directly. And then so you have the introversion and the reliability that is directed toward the self as a living being. And on the other side, you have the extroversion and the flexibility directed on the outside towards other living beings that are not you. And if it was not clear by now, I am really trying to convince you that introversion is about reliability and extroversion is about flexibility. Because, like, of course, the main purpose of introversion and extroversion is the expending of energy on the inside or on the outside. But when it's translated in survival world, it becomes reliability and flexibility. And I will show you that it works in literally every coin, not just the observers and the deciders, but also the modalities and the social types. And I also want to make clear that when I say reliability, I don't mean in the sense of I don't mean something that works 100%, because reliability is subjective, and that's kind of the point. Something that is reliable to you might not be reliable to another person, which is why these are two opposite, like the reliability and flexibility. Reliability is choosing something and sticking with it because it works, or because the information and you're less open to choose something else in another situation. And flexibility is literally the opposite. It's just for every situation is yoink, 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 and you just do whatever it's the most flexible at that moment, but it's not necessarily reliable to you. And so it's kind of tricky to define, which is why it's so hard to make definitions, because words are nuanced and it's really hard to find the right way to say something. And so yeah, I tried my best, and this is also the whole point of this series. And it doesn't necessarily help with typing people, but again, the purpose of this series is to give a survivalistic explanation. So I'm not trying to help you type better, so just keep that in mind. Okay, looks like I need to redo the next part as well, because I completely butchered it. But yeah, going back to the INDE and specifically about the fears of the INDE, it's basically the same as I explained for the observer coins. So when you're in a situation that forces you to use your last function instead of your first function, that's where the fear really comes from. Or rather, that's where the fear really shows. So for the DE, because they are outsourcing all the time the assessments to the tribe, they need to keep the tribe alive. And basically, group is power. If I'm with people, I can help them so that they can help me and do all the decisions together, and raises the chances of survival. And when you find yourself alone as a DE, that's where the fear comes from, because now you have to rely on your own assessments and you don't have a tribe to outsource your assessments to. And that's also the fear of abandonment. If the tribe leaves you, you have, again, no more tribe. The DI mentality is literally the opposite. So if the DE is constantly caring about others because it's okay, if I have more people, I have more chances of survival, the DI is no, if I care about someone else, I am wasting time that I can use to care about myself. And so I'm lowering my chances of survival. And so that's kind of where the hate for the assessments of the tribe comes from. The fact that those assessments are kind of slowing you down. You have to constantly think about yourself and how to survive. And if you spend even 5 seconds thinking about the tribe wants to survive, that's going to slow you down. And similarly to how it worked for OE, the DI also unconsciously knows that some people work the other way. And so they have this fear that if they find a tribe that has not the best intentions towards them, they are going to be outnumbered. The DI is going to be outnumbered. And if the tribe is angry at them, the other tribe might actually attack the DI and kill him. And so in that situation, the DI is forced to use the last function to kind of be friendly towards this enemy tribe, and so hope that the tribe does not decide to actually kill the DI. And that's how the two fears work. So that's pretty much about it, about DI and E. So let's start with the F. The F is very effing simple. People with thinking tend to overthink the F, and I'm definitely guilty of doing that. But even Dave has said many times that the F is very, very simple. The F is just, is this good or is this bad? If you touch a fire and the fire causes you pain, fire equals bad. If you're hungry and you eat some food and the food makes the hunger go away and you're still alive, food equals good. That's literally what the F is doing. Nothing else. It's a very simple function. Now I know that you F saviors might be thinking,
oh, but I'm not just doing that, it's much more complex, it's the ethics, it's this, it's that.
Yes, that's an adaptation. We adapted to how we evolved. But at the very core, a single function must feel useless because your brain needs all four functions. So when you're thinking about ethics, when you're thinking about the values of society, you are using all the functions. So you're just describing a complex behavior. To take the single function out, you have to make an abstraction and find the core that moves that function, and the core itself must be useless by itself. Now, all that's left is the T. And to understand what the T is doing, you just need to look at all the other functions and ask yourself what's missing. Because now you are able to observe and you're able to tell if something is good or bad. So like, you know where your apple tree is, and you know you're hungry. You know that being hungry is bad. And you know that an apple is good for when you're hungry. Now what? Well, now you know that you literally need to get outside and take the apple. The T is the connection between a negative observation in the present and a positive observation in the future. It's the set of actions that you need to take in order to make the more positive future a thing. Because that's all survival wants us to do. Survival wants to make us survive. And to survive, you need to move from negative situations to positive situations. Now I call this the cognitive execution diagram. Now I know I already feel like, especially Dave, I always hear Dave's voice in my head. Listen, why don't you just find a funny name? Okay, you know what? It looks like a bone, so I call it the bone diagram. And it's kind of funny because if you miss any single function, you kind of get boned by life. So that's it. That's your name, the bone diagram. I hope you're happy, because I'm not. Now, for the most skeptical people out there, I know what you're thinking. I know this graph kinda looks funky. You're thinking there's something wrong with it. So now let me name each part in a different way that may make you less skeptical. So you observe the details, you do the work, and you reach a conclusion. Oh my god, it's almost as if that's exactly the OP definitions. Wow, how did I get that? So guess what? I need to make another clarification, which is the details and the jumping to conclusion is actually not in the elimination tool definitions, but I would argue that it's used by Dave and Shan way more than the actual definitions of the elimination tool. So I guess it still counts. Now, you still may not like the fact that the F is not really opposite to the T, but that's for a reason. That's because what this diagram is really showing is the execution of the functions over time. So if you're observing a person from the outside, that's how life goes forward. So it's literally the flow of time. You cannot escape that. Now, to get to why the F is the opposite of the T, unfortunately, you'll have to wait for the video about the animals, because there I will explain how each part connects into the brain. So yeah, this is it for this video. If you want to know when the next video will be coming out, the only way is subscribing and turning on the notifications, or joining one of my socials that you will find in my link tree in the description. And if you have any questions or ideas, thoughts, counter arguments, feel free to write everything in the comments. And I think what I'll do is I'll make a video at the very end of the series where I'll just try to reply to every counter argument, comment, whatever. Because if I do it in the middle of the series, it's going to break everything. So yeah, I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching. However, when it comes to deciders, I feel like the word judge. However, when it comes to deciders, I feel like the word judge. So what the T is, it's simply the connection. F you.